Hello everyone, this is Mr. Speak, and I'm going to do my What's Next segment on One Piece. One Piece is definitely open-ended in terms of storyline, but I'm going to try to keep it small and concerning theories, possibilities, and the like, and talk about them. Uh, I'm going to try to condense them because again, it's really open-ended series. Anything could happen, and with Ace's death, anything can happen. So let's get started, shall we? In any case, recent chapters we've seen Vanderdecken and Hody having a falling out. Namely, Hody has stabbed Vanderdecken, and you know, I think Hody's banking on Vanderdecken's powers will dissipate once he's dead, when meaning that the ship is going to fall on Fishman Island. What do you think is going to happen concerning that? Honestly, that's question one. What do you think is going to happen? Is the ship just going to fall? Is the ship going to go out of control? Or, what's going to happen concerning devil fruit power? Sometimes it's clear cut with these things, but you never know. I think there's a possibility that it could just end up going out of control, or maybe it'll just end up falling. Either way, not very sure. Not very sure. Comment below. It's kind of a weak first question, but that's how I'm starting. Second, if the ship does fall, how is that going to be dealt with? Again, they've been really adamant about not letting anything happen to the ship, but at the same time, they don't want Fishman Island to be destroyed. So my theory on that is that Luffy's probably going to destroy the ship. Zoro might destroy the ship. Hell, any one of the monster trio might end up destroying the ship. But at the same time, will they destroy the ship or will they destroy Fishman Island? Because, Madam Shirley has said that Luffy's going to destroy Fishman Island. Would he destroy Fishman Island to force like the fishermen to go up top? I mean, it's definitely big enough to probably house all of them. Now it'll be kind of cramped still, but at the same time, they've been kind of leery about going up to the surface ever since that Queen Otohime incident. The princes have been collecting the signatures and stuff like that again, but at the same time, I don't think if they had the ship, why didn't they go ahead to Reverie a long time ago? Those are the kinds of things you need to think about. So that's the second question. What's going to happen to the ship? Who's going to destroy it? If it's going to be destroyed, things along that line. I think I lost the original second question. In any case, third question. After this arc is over, what's going to be the next big thing? Uh, I definitely have my theories on that. One is that somebody's going to come to the island looking for Luffy. The world definitely knows he's back, so it would not be too far fetched to assume that somebody's going to come after Luffy. A tough combatant at that because he's been training with Rayleigh. It definitely can be assumed that even if you didn't know like we knew about the whole training arc, you could definitely assume that he's been training with Rayleigh because he was seen with Rayleigh, and it's been a while since he last was seen. So it's definitely a lot to be left up to. Plus their capabilities when facing the Pacifista. Everyone of the monster trio could have taken the Pacifista down easily. Like, literally flick of the wrist. It happened. Whole fight with the Luffy Pacifista thing, all in all, it took about 10 seconds, and pretty much majority of that, 9.5 of those seconds were just, dodging an attack and closing the distance really fast. And even that, he was just trying to cut, like, getting a feel for his surrounding. Zoro cut one down pretty good. Sanji disabled his neck, either which could easily have disabled the Pacifista. So, yeah. And at this point, the Monster Trio are treating Pacifista like regular mooks now, and that's definitely that's definitely just an insight on how much they've grown in these last 2 years. Um, what do you think? Maybe like the new Pacifista are the ones that are going to get sent to Fishman Island. That definitely would be interesting. I don't see how they can improve on the original Pacifista any further. Maybe they like incorporated Kuma's powers as well. That's definitely a possibility. But I'd wager that maybe a vice admiral at least got sent there. Maybe Smoker will get sent there. We don't know how far Smoker has gotten in these past 2 years. So, that's something. That's another something to think about. Comment below. Question. Wait. Damn, I lost the numbering. Anyway, next question. Let's just leave it at that. Next question is, how far have the other characters gotten in these last 2 years? A lot of the characters we kind of seen, the limits of their powers or got an insight on the limits of their powers. Like Crocodile, he definitely seemed to be near Admiral level, but not quite on their level, just because he's dealing with a lot more hazardous people. He can't touch Kizaru. He can affect Akainu and probably Aokiji, but then again, magma and ice definitely are not something you want to play with, even if you're something like sand. So I'd wager he's near Admiral level. If he, well, he would be. He probably would be Admiral level if his weakness wasn't so easy to come by. So that's something to be. That's something worth noting. But anyway, how far have these other characters gotten? What has happened to Buggy? What has happened to, again, Smoker? What has happened to any of the other characters? We've seen Sentomaru, the guy in charge of the pacifistas. He's, apparently going up in rank. He's joined the Marines and he's going up in rank. So we've seen a little bit on how the Marines have been doing. Other than that, Kobe, Garp, Sengoku, how have they changed? What's happened to them? Stuff of that nature. Next question. What is going to happen with Blackbeard? Now, this kind of slips into the question like how far the other people's grown, but this is a different. What's going to happen to Blackbeard? Blackbeard has 2 devil fruits, something not heard of before in the series. So, yeah, not to mention one of them is the most destructive devil fruit. So what has he been doing with that? What is he going to do with that? What is his overall plot? And how far has he gotten? Concerning One Piece and all that. If he hasn't gotten at least a lot closer to One Piece, then I definitely would think that, he's not up to the task. We got a glimpse of that during his fight with Whitebeard, that he's not up to the task, namely that, unlike the other D's, he doesn't smile in the face of death, he fears it, and he apparently doesn't possess something that the other D's possess. Maybe it's just the will of D, maybe, it's something that concerns the will of D at least. So what's going on with Blackbeard? Has he been just, kicking up his heels? Has he gotten a larger crew? Definitely out there, but it's definitely a possibility. So, I guess it's another thing to think about. Just that's mainly Blackbeard focused though. What's next? Next question, sorry. Concerning namely the Celestial Dragons and the Gurosei. The Celestial Dragons, they're definitely people I think Luffy would, at least deal with in some way before he ends up at Raftel. These guys have been shown to have no redeeming qualities. When you see them in a scene, you know something terrible is about to go down, something in bad taste, to say the least, is about to go down. These are definitely people I'd see Luffy, like, at least dealing with in some fashion before he goes to Raftel. I just can't see them still being around when Luffy goes down. I think they're going to bring about their own end. Again, the only thing that they have going for them is that they're descendants of the original, original world nobles. That's the only thing that's, keeps them above everybody else. But then again, even with the Marines, that's kind of weak pretense. Just because you're descendants, it depends on what you do with that name. If you go around treating everyone like assholes and contribute absolutely nothing to anything, then I definitely think the Marines are just going to eventually get sick and tired of them, the Gurosei even. And on that note, the Gurosei, what's going to happen concerning them? These guys have been masterminding a lot of stuff. These guys have been the guys really in charge of everything. So we kind of got a glimpse of them before. They had little meetings concerning Blackbeard and stuff like that. And they seem to be kind of like orchestrating things so that Blackbeard will be dealt with and possibly maintain the balance of power, or that in the hope that Blackbeard and his proposed combatant Marco and the rest of the Whitebeard pirates would probably take him out. Are they trying to orchestrate things from behind the scenes? We definitely see that they're all about. They've been partially part of their character is that mainly they're all about image, namely that they didn't talk about the release or escape of the level 6 prisoners. A lot of them who are put there for a very good reason if Crocodile, Jinbei, Ace, etc. is anything to go on. So I could assume that the less, restrained individuals would probably do a lot worse just because of their character. So Definitely, these are people all about image. Not to mention, after the war, apparently these might be the guys that led to Moria's death. We don't know that Moria is dead. It hasn't been explicitly stated because it said Doflamingo said that he somehow aped using his shadow. But at the same time, we don't know if he's alive. Hopefully, he is alive. I mean, I don't like Moria too much as a character, but it's still that's kind of a bad way to go out, being assassinated by the people that you're working for. Tough way to go. So yeah, what's going to happen concerning them? Again, people in power generally have strength to reflect that power aside from the celestial dragons. So the Gorosei definitely top of the line combatants. However, even if they weren't there, or they're mainly orchestrate things behind the scenes. So what's going to happen concerning them? A lot of the Marines and stuff have been talking about, upsetting the balance of power, especially with this war with Whitebeard. Again, Ace is a person they could have executed just simply behind the scenes. No, they decided to make the big deal of it, knowing that it would draw Whitebeard out of hiding. And you had to believe that Gorosei had to be behind that in some fashion. The Marines, I definitely wouldn't put it past them to think of something like that, but the Gorosei are the guys behind the Marines, so I definitely would wager that they had something to do with that, which means that, possibly they're trying to make a power play. That's up to your discussion, but I think that they could be trying to make a power play just to have total control over everything rather than just having the balance of power between, the Yonku, the Marines, and the Shichibukai. I mean, yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I think the balance of power originally was. I think that's all for right now. If I think of anything more, I'll post it in a part 2. It'll be dated the same day, just because I don't want people to get confused. So yeah, those are things to think about. I was gonna do a recap, but I'm kind of scatterbrained right now. Sorry. So this is where I'm gonna be cutting out. Anyway, rate, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think, other things that could be flowing around. Discuss things you have. Discuss anything you have about the points that I've said or any other points that I may have missed. Complaints, things of that nature. Put it below. Anyway, this has been Mr. Speak signing off.